Hello, my friends. I'm so sorry that I can't be with you for such a wonderful night of music and celebration and cariño in Los Angeles. I just flew in from Peru and raced off to Ottawa to give a talk at the annual dinner of the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. And when I stumbled on stage around 11 o'clock last night, in the wake of an evening that had been devoted almost entirely to a celebration of Canada on the 150th anniversary of our Confederation, I couldn't help but speak about another country, a country equally close to my heart as that of my own, and that, of course, is Colombia. And I tried to share with that Canadian audience what I've shared with audiences all around the world over the last many months, and that is a truth about the Colombia that I know and that I love. I shared with them that, while it was obvious that over the last 40 years Colombia had been convulsed by a brutal conflict that had left 250,000 dead and 7 million displaced, the obvious fact that every family had suffered. But I reminded them that in a nation of 48 million people, the number of actual combatants had never surpassed, at any one point in time, 200,000. The great majority of Colombians were but innocent victims of a war fueled almost exclusively by the profits of the cocaine trade. Responsibility for Colombia's agonies lies not just in the streets of Medellin or Cartagena or Cali or Bogota. It lies in good measure with every person who has bought street cocaine in any city of the world, and with every foreign nation that has made possible the illicit market by prohibiting the drug without actually curbing its use in any serious way. Colombia, as I shared with that audience in Ottawa, is not a place of violence and drugs. It is a land of colores and cariño, where the people have endured and overcome years of conflict precisely because of their character, which is itself informed by an enduring spirit of place, a deep love of a land that is perhaps the most bountiful on earth, certainly the home to the greatest ecological, biological, and geographical diversity to be found on the planet. And it speaks volumes of the strength and resilience of the Colombian people, that through all these difficult and impossible years, the nation has maintained civil society and democracy, grown its economy, greened its cities, created millions of acres of national parks, and sought meaningful restitution with scores of indigenous cultures. The signing of the peace accords in Cartagena in September of 2016 didn't solve every problem, but it did send a powerful message to every nation that while the world may be falling apart, Colombia is falling together. It will be a long, slow process of reconciliation and redemption, but it implies limitless possibilities. 2 generations of young Colombians forced to flee the conflict are today returning from New York, London, Paris, and Madrid with highly developed skills in every conceivable field of endeavor, leaving the nation on the verge of an economic and cultural and intellectual renaissance unlike anything ever seen in Latin America. And within Colombia, literally millions are on the move, many for the first time, some displaced by the violence or finally finding their way home, while others, almost as pilgrims, are taking to the open road in search of work and family and new lives. In 2016 alone, some 20 million Colombians traveled within their country, close to half of the national population. And as men and women from Valledupar to Pasto, Manizales to Mocoa, Bucaramanga and Buenaventura to Barranca Bermeja, Cali, Medellin and Bogota are at last free to discover their own homeland, all of Colombia has awoken to the realization that vast regions of the country, long isolated by the war, have been mercifully spared the ravages of industrial development. This perhaps will be the real peace dividend, the opportunity for the nation to consciously and deliberately decide the fate of its greatest asset, the land itself, along with the forests, rivers, lakes, and mountains and streams. If the lowland rainforests of Ecuador, to cite but one example, have since 1975 been utterly transformed by oil and gas exploration, colonization, and deforestation. The Colombian Amazon, by contrast, remains an essentially roadless expanse of pristine forests the size of France. And so decisions made today about the fate of all the wild lands of Colombia will benefit from the wisdom of indigenous elders and the insights of decades of scientific research, all informed by an awareness of the importance of both biological and cultural diversity that simply did not exist when the fate of lowland Ecuador was determined 5 decades ago. Rarely in history has a nation-state been given such an opportunity to envision its future, and such a reprieve from the industrial forces that have ravaged so much of the world over the last half-century. But everything hangs in the balance. As Mamo Camillo, a revered Arahuaco elder and a good friend of so many of us, remarked when we all gathered on the banks of the Don Diego River so long ago, La paz no vale nada si es solamente una manera en que los dos lados pueden unificarse para mantener una guerra contra la naturaleza. Peace will not matter if it is only an excuse for all sides of the conflict to come together to maintain a war against nature. The time has come, he remarked, to make peace with the entire natural world. So I'll leave you with those sentiments on this splendid night in Los Angeles. And remember that the voices of the elders really do have meaning and resonance. And when we say that the rituals of the Arahuacos and the Kogi and the Wiwa maintain the cosmic balance of the world, it is because they really do. That's what we have to learn from the indigenous people of Colombia. That is the message that they bring to the peace process. And those are the voices that we must endeavor to amplify, to empower, and to hear as we move forward with all of our collective dream for a new Colombia and indeed for a new planet.